What's up, guys? This is Travis Chappell, host of the Travis Makes Friends podcast, and you are listening to The Motivated Mindset with Bobby Stein.
Thanks, my brother. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir, of course.
So, everyone, welcome into another installment of the Motivated Mindset podcast. I trust that wherever you're watching or listening today, that you're doing absolutely fantastic. And I am super stoked to be speaking with a hero of mine in the podcasting space. This gentleman is considered by many to be the man of networking, creating meaningful and lasting relationships. In addition, he's interviewed, hosted, and produced hundreds of episodes with his own show, Travis Makes Friends. He manages to forge relationships with business leaders, entertainers, entrepreneurs, athletes, and extraordinary folks from all walks of life. And his service, Guestio, is an innovative way to bring both podcasters and guests together alike. Plus, and finally, he's a father, husband, coach, and just really a neat guy. So without further delay, let's welcome in and learn what all motivates the mindset of the unique mindset of Travis Chappell. And thanks for tuning in. Travis, how you doing, man? Happy New Year.
Bobby, what's up, dude? How's it going, man? Happy New Year to you as well.
Thank you, my brother. So not too much. How's the health doing these days? What's going on? Give us an update.
Yeah, it's, I have no complaints. In remission. And as far as I can tell, it's left and hopefully never comes back. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Just trying to take it day by day.
What was it exactly? Can I ask you?
Yeah. Cancer, diagnosed with cancer back in June, got surgery, got the tumor removed, and then was lucky enough to catch it early on, so I didn't have to do any radiation or chemo or anything like that.
Oh, man.
So now it's just more of, examining diet and all that kind of stuff. And it was just kind of weird. It was just terrible. It was weird timing because I felt like I got into the best shape of my life, essentially. And I grew up playing a lot of sports, was super athletic, but for a good portion of my 20s, I got married really young, 21, and my wife made great food, and I was injured in college basketball and had to get reconstructive surgery on my ankle. And so I just was nowhere near as active as I was in college playing basketball, 7 days a week, essentially. Yeah. And then started eating a lot more because my wife's a great cook, and started drinking beer for the first time in my early 20s. And you mix all that perfect cocktail together, and I ended up gaining like 50, 60 pounds in a year and a half. Still have stretch marks from it. And then for the next 4 or 5 years, I was like always yo-yoing, I initially, I never got up to 250 again. That was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. It just happened so fast that I didn't realize what was going on. So I went from 250 down to 200 in about another year. And then over the next like 5 years, it was always like yo-yoing between 200 and 220. It was like, by the end of the holiday season, I'm 224 again, and then I'm cutting back down to 205. So I was always like yo-yoing in that weight area. And then a couple of years ago, I just kind of got fed up with it and really took control of my my nutrition, because I was in the gym all the time. I was in the gym basically every day. It's just that my nutrition was always up and down. So this time I was like, I really got to get serious about this and turn it into a lifestyle rather than just like another 6-week challenge that's going to blow up in my face as soon as I'm done with it. And, this was about a year and a half after I made that decision, where I had kept all the weight off, and like, my new yo-yo weight was like 185 to 195, you know what I mean? Rather than 205 to 220.
That's a 10-pound, window. That's not hateful. I mean,
no. You're always going to be fluctuating, and especially, I would go through phases where I'm trying to gain more muscle, and you're always going to gain weight and fat during that time. And then you go through phases where you try to cut weight and you're going to lose muscle during that time. And so I knew like that, but that fluctuation was cool with me. It was like, if what used to be the lowest I was is now the highest I ever am, like that feels better, So I got my health under control, and then it was a year and a half into finally getting it under control, where it was like, oh, by the way, you also have cancer. So it was just like a weird timing and then a weird time frame. But I was, like I said, lucky enough that we caught it early detection. Still the number one tool that we have against fighting cancer is early detection. So I was lucky enough to find it early on, where when they got done, they were like, we can do a round of chemo. We can do a round of radiation. It's up to you. and basically it's at this point it's just to prevent recurrence. So I was just like, I don't know. I've just heard so many negative adverse side effects of the treatments that I just decided like, nah, I'm going to just play it cool.
I'm good.
Do it on my own. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you weigh now? What's your weight?
I'm about 190 right now.
How tall are you, Trav?
6'1".
And what position did you play in basketball in college?
So in college, my freshman year, I mostly played the bench. And then I started to play a little bit more my sophomore year. Yeah, I started playing a little bit more my sophomore year. And then that was when I got injured during Christmas break. I was like trying to stay in shape during Christmas break because I was finally getting some playing time for sophomore fall semester. And I was trying to stay in shape and get better during Christmas break and hurt myself, was out for the rest of the season, and then got surgery my junior year. And then I was just like, what am I doing to myself? I have zero advancement in basketball. I'm just like destroying my body and in pain
Hit
all
the
the
ceiling,
time for nothing. So I ended up not even playing my senior year. And I graduated a semester early anyway, so I wouldn't have even been around. But I was in college, I was more like a 2-guard or a 3-guard. A 2-guard or 3, forward, essentially small forward or shooting guard, but I wasn't as good of a shooter in college. So, and then, when I started getting injured, it was just, I was losing steps and I was too short to play a big and I was too slow to play a guard, so like I said, I was just beating myself up for no reason. So I was like, all right, I think I've had enough,
Totally understand. Are you back in the gym now, and what's your diet kind of look like?
Yeah. I never got out of the gym.
Yeah.
Actually, coincidentally, the last like 4 to 6 weeks, I haven't been in the gym that much because I hurt myself actually playing basketball again. Just playing like pickup at the, we played pickup a couple times a weekend on the at the gym that I was going to, and so I got hurt playing that and haven't been able to really lift since. So I just been running and walking mostly, and then doing push-ups, pull-ups, body weight stuff, weight vest stuff, activities, things like that. And then diet, man, I try not to overcomplicate it. My biggest thing is I just try to stay under my 2,000 to 2,500 calorie allotment every day. Cause I'm trying, since I can't be in the gym right now, with the injury, I'm just cutting. So I was just like, I overdid it over Christmas, probably like a lot of people. And so I was like, whatever. I can't lift right now, so I can't gain muscle. So I may as well just go on a cut. So I'm staying under 2,000 calories ish a day.
Wow,
and then I typically fast every breakfast for sure. And then 2-3 days a week, I'll fast till dinner. And then just make sure that the meal that I do have around dinner is really nutritionally dense. So you make sure you get all your nutrition in for the day, and very heavy on the protein side. And then I'll have like a protein shake or something after dinner, when I do those single days. But I basically just try to stay under the calories and get as many protein grams in as I can and let the other macros kind of fall where they may.
Yeah, right. How about energy? I know when I fast, I'll do some of that intermittent stuff. And, when it came on vogue and then, on the scene, I, of course, had to jump in and dip my toe in the water. What I found about it was I had a lot more clarity. Like I was really dialed in and zoned in. Did you experience anything, or why do you fast? What's your drive for that? What's the motivation behind it?
Yeah, I've been fasting for probably 3 or 4 years now. But more recently, it was more aggressive. Like when I really started cutting weight and feeling fine. Like that's the thing with fasting is my mom gets worried about me because she's just like, "Are you sure that's healthy to skip all your meals and only have a meal a day?" And it's like, well, first of all, no, I'm not sure that it's healthy. I know it's healthier than eating 3,500 calories a day or 4,000 a day. I know that's healthier than that. But I also think that culture, especially American culture, overeats in general all the time. So fasting was a mental reset to be like, you don't actually need near as much food as you think you need. It's
Yeah.
just mental triggers during the day. It's like, well, I need my 3 squares a day and my snack in the afternoon. And it's like, you don't really need those things. Like you need a
No.
certain number of calories, you need nutrition, you need, some of those things, but you don't need to have 3 meals every day or a snack or whatever. So to me, it was like, you got to figure out what works for you. And sometimes what works for me is like, I work a lot during the day and I, have calls on calls on calls from the morning to the mid afternoon. I pick up my kids. And so sometimes it's just like,
Yeah.
it's easier for me just to not have breakfast or lunch and work through those times and then have a good sized dinner that gives me 90 to 100 grams of protein and 1500 to 1800 calories or something like that. And then after dinner I can have some fruit or a piece of like peanut butter honey toast or something like that. It's like gives me a little bit more carbs for the next day, a little bit more protein again, or a protein shake, something. So I'll usually have dinner and then I'll wait another hour and have like another little like small snack or something like that afterwards. So I end up pushing the 2000 calories. It's just, like I said, most people don't realize how much food they're eating throughout the day, and then they're wondering why they're not why they're not losing weight, which was me for a long time. I'd be like, "But I'm eating the good food." It's like, it doesn't matter if you're eating good food. If you're overeating good food, you're still going to gain weight. It's just a energy in, energy out thing.
It's plain and simple. But we get programmed, right, and you get conditioned, as it were. And thus you end up deconditioned. If you watch the boob tube and all the I'm loving it and da 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 da, you just kind of lazily kind of fall into that trap. And
if you never track it, you never know.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, that's the whole thing.
Measured as
exactly.
I forget the saying, but
what gets measured gets improved or whatever. If you don't know where you're starting, how do you know where you're going? If you don't have a good baseline. So that was my number one recommendation for anybody that's frustrated at the fact that they're not losing weight. My only recommendation is literally just track the calories. Don't worry about changing anything right now. Don't worry about doing a 30-day challenge and depriving yourself of all the foods that you like. Don't do anything other than doing the math on how many calories you should be eating to lose weight, and then tracking your calories every day for 30 days. And I'm talking every calorie. That's the thing. That's why most people won't do it. And that's why I was opposed to doing it for a long time.
Exactly.
You got to be like, you can't just be like, well, I only took a handful of my wife's fries, so I'm not going to count that. No. It's like, well, you do that 4 times throughout the day. You added another 500 calories because you didn't just eat the fries, you dipped them in the ketchup or the ranch, which is more calories. And like some of those things are really calorically dense. You don't realize, you know what I mean? So you get so if you actually track everything that you put in your mouth on a daily basis for 30 days, you will be surprised how many calories you're consuming every day. And then from there, you can make a decision. You can be like, look, it doesn't matter to me to have a 6-pack. I'm not going to be Mr. Olympia, whatever. Like, I don't want to go crazy with this. I actually like my life and I'm only 18 pounds overweight, whatever. I like having Big Macs.
It's manageable.
Okay,
it's
cool.
Manageable.
But at least now you have something to look at where you're not driving yourself crazy and being like, why am I not losing weight? It's like, well, this is exactly why you're not losing weight, because for your age, weight, body, composition, you should only be having 1,800 calories a day if you want to be in a caloric deficit to lose weight. If you're having more than that, you will gain weight. It doesn't matter if it's, fruit or brownies, it's calories, and drinks don't count less.
It doesn't much
matter. You know what I mean? People have this weird concept with drinks too.
Tequila and it's the alcohol.
It's like, well, I'm drinking it. It can't be that bad. Sure. It's like, those are calories still.
It's clear. So. It's clear. It's like water. Yeah.
So track the calories.
You have a slam schedule, man, and in terms of just like energy, do you do caffeine? I know I got my I was on that what you call the Zen train, right? So, I don't know. I use that for energy. What do you? Well, here I'll take you back a step, Trav. So this is what I do when I'm off air.
There you go.
It's evil incarnate.
Evil
incarnate. Don't start
incarnate.
It's difficult.
We all got a vice, man.
What do you do? Caffeine and stuff? Or?
Yeah. Caffeine for sure. If you're fasted, you just can't have any calories. So black coffee is my thing. 0 calorie beverage. I'll have black coffee. I just now that I was like every night having like a nightcap or glass of wine, whiskey, something, or like an edible, like a weed gummy or something, to go to sleep.
Yep.
And at that point, I would allow myself to have caffeine into the early afternoon to get through the, afternoon slump or whatever. But now that I am off of both alcohol and weed for a few weeks, I am cutting off my caffeine consumption around 11 a.m. every day, so that doesn't affect my sleep.
Smart, super smart.
Yeah,
especially with the weed.
Yeah, so I'll have some coffee in the morning, and then if I need a boost in the afternoon, honestly, man, the Zins have come in handy for that. If I get to like 2 p.m., 3 p.m., and I'm like, I hit like, man, I got to lay down for a second. I know if I take a nap in the early afternoon, I'm not going to go to sleep when I need to go to sleep. I'm going to be up, so I try not to take that nap. I just like pop in a Zin and get through that like 15, 20 minute time period. And then I'm good to go, until the,
and that's all it is. It's just a short thing. You got to get over that hurdle. So I do the chocolate, what is it? Indica and sativa, indica. And
indica.
Just to go to sleep. But there's that fine line. If I, and it took me a minute to monitor and measure it. They write them like scripts, like they're candy in Florida. And, I'm like, sign me up. So I got them, and I didn't know where the cutoff date was or what the dosage was. So I'm like eating them, and the next thing you know, I'm like tripping, and
you're on another planet.
So, exactly. So
exactly.
I think I've got it dialed in now, and much like you, I gave up the alcohol for a minute. It's been 41 days, and caffeine I did give up, but this is kicking my hiney, and we'll see how we go.
That's the thing, man. Like, I'm not a purist. I'm not a purist. I'm not a, Brian Johnson type of a guy that's just like giving up every single thing for the sake of optimization. It's like I don't know, man, you gotta enjoy things. You gotta enjoy some stuff. You can't give up literally everything. It's like, I'm still smoking cigars. Like, I don't care. I don't do it 3 times a day, but once a month I'll go out and have a cigar, and I'm not going to stop doing that. I enjoy it. So I know it's not good for me. I know that, but I'm not going to stop. You know what I mean? So you gotta have some things. You gotta have that release, that vice, whatever it is, and everybody's got them, I think.
I know. I remember with the cigars, I used to belong to Thompson Cigar Company, and I had a little humidor, and I'd mail order cigars in, and they would no sooner get in the humidor, they wouldn't have a chance to get humid. I'd be smoking 5, 6 a day on the basketball court in between games. If we lost, I'd sit down, I'd be huffing a Partagas, and like a bonehead, I friggin' inhale them like they're cigarettes. And man. My motto is, if one's good, 10's better, right? And so I don't know. It's that addictive personality. But Travis, do me a favor. Tell me, you grew up in kind of like a little bit of a, I don't know, it wasn't like quote unquote traditional setting. You were from Lancaster, California, and you grew up, and you tell me about your schooling and your upbringing. It was a little unique, and I'd like to share that if I could.
Yeah, sure. The easiest way to say it is that it was a cult, but I try not to just leave it at that, because it is not a fair and accurate, complete description, I think, sometimes. But just saying like I grew up in church is definitely not encompassing of how I grew up. So it was a fundamentalist Baptist denomination called the IFB, Independent Fundamental Baptist Movement. There's a documentary on HBO about it, and that was where I grew up. I grew up in one of the more progressive versions of that church, but I mean, even in that culture, progressive is not a good word to describe anybody in that world. Like we wouldn't associate with Southern Baptists, because Southern Baptist was too liberal for like our doctrine, our beliefs.
Your doctrine. Yeah.
So I ended up going to this one church we started going there when I was 3, and I went there until I got married and moved away. So when I was 21 and 22, I guess. And then the unique thing is that church had a closed enrollment school on the campus. Closed enrollment meaning that the only people that could send their kids to the school were members of the church. So I went to kindergarten through 12th grade on that campus. And then they had a ministerial kind of seminary college that they started that was on that same campus, which is also where I went to college. So I graduated college and kindergarten on the same campus, which is also where I spent all my time going to church. So quite
That's
literally
crazy.
like 7 days a week, my entire childhood,
Yeah.
because we had Sunday morning service, and at Sunday morning service, we went to Sunday school first, which is like a, classroom by classroom church. And then we go to, at the time we call it big church, which is where everybody goes, all the adults and all the kids. So we had Sunday morning, which was 2 services. And then we had Sunday night church, and we'd have 2 services Sunday night. They called it visit with the pastor, which was kind of like more of a lesson. And then we'd stand up and sing a couple hymns. And then we'd do Sunday night preaching, which was more like, the hellfire brimstone type preaching that you hear about. So we had basically 4 services on Sunday, and then we had a Wednesday night service, and then at school we had chapel. And then on the days we didn't have chapel, which was basically just a mini church service for the school students, on the days we didn't have chapel, we had Bible class. So it was every single day. And then Saturday we had soul winning, which is basically going to church, and they had a soul winning rally, which is a mini service that you have like 15, 20 minutes. And then you go out and knock on doors and invite people to come to church the next day. So on Sunday. So quite literally every day of the week, there was something to do there. And I was there if I wasn't there for school, I was there for church. If I wasn't there for church, I was there for athletics. If I wasn't there for athletics, I was there for, graduations, or we had revival week, which would be church Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. We had missions conference, same thing. Leadership conference, same thing. Youth conference, winter retreat, teen camp, like services upon services upon services, church on church on church on church.
Goodness gracious.
Lots of just weird arbitrary rules that were part of that, obviously, in those fundamentalist circles. And so growing up, I didn't really have any other options besides, like, the way I explain it is there was no career counselor that was like, what do you want to do? Here's the grades that you need. Here's schools that will allow you to blah, blah, blah. It was basically, have you been called to ministry yet? Which is like their goal essentially, is to get everybody called to ministry so that they can put more people in ministry.
Yeah.
And if you have not been called to ministry, so if you're going to ministry, here's an application to the college on this campus, because no other college in our movement is going to be as good as this one. So here's an application to the college that you already know about that's here. If you don't want to go into ministry, good luck. There was no additional like, oh, you want to be an engineer? Here's what you need. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like there was nothing like that. So it was basically, I believe to this day, my graduating class was the biggest graduating class ever. And we had 40 students ish in that class. I want to say 38 or something we graduated with. And half of us went to the college and did the ministerial path. And the other half basically was just like, they went to the military or they went to the local junior college to try to do something, or they went into like law enforcement or something like that. Like there was nobody going out to big schools or getting good educations or, having a shot at like a real traditional career path from there, unless they just figured it all out on their own. So I ended up in the ministry camp and went to Bible college on that same campus and graduated with a double major in Bible and church ministries.
Wow, that's incredible. And you met your wife there?
Yeah, in high school. So their family moved to our city, to our church. And our church was the church that I grew up at in Lancaster was the kind of the flagship church of that movement at that time. There's one or two other churches that we didn't really associate with because there was a lot of different like scandals, which is kind of what that documentary on HBO Max is about. So
Gotcha.
we kind of were in our own little silo apart from the other quote unquote mega churches in that movement. But our church was the one that was kind of the new leader of that movement. So
Gotcha.
my wife grew up in the same movement in Sacramento and Oregon. And then her family moved down to Lancaster when her brother started going to the college. And so we met our 9th grade year. And then we started dating our senior year of high school. And then we went to all 4 years of college together and got married the semester before we walked on and got our diplomas.
Gotcha. How's your faith now? I mean, after, being so, indoctrinated, I don't even know what to say, what the right word would be. How do you, did you still have a relationship with God? I mean, where does that leave you?
No, not really. I kind of was, what I tell people a lot is like, if I had grown up kind of community church Christian, I probably would still be that way because
Right.
I was never really, I don't think I would have been forced to look in the face of my faith as much as I was when I was coming out of college, because it was like, I'm either going to do this with the rest of my life or I'm going to do something different. And if I truly believe all these things, I don't see a choice. Like I feel like I have to do this thing for the rest of my life. So I better like be really, really, really sure that this is the path that I want to go down. And so
Absolutely.
I started just looking for a bunch of other, consuming a bunch of other information, and kind of led me down this other path. And then really like a couple years into it, I just kind of started being like, you know what? Researching your way into faith is never a path that's going to work. And if you just don't believe it, you don't believe it. And you're never going to find enough research to convince you to believe it. And nobody on the planet has enough research to convince anybody else to believe it, or else we would all believe the same thing at the end of the day, because there would be overwhelming evidence to support only one path instead of 300 divergent paths. And so at that point, I was just kind of like, look, everybody can kind of believe what they want. I personally, you know, a lot of people in that world did not like me leaving, and obviously lost a lot of friendships and relationships because of it. And one of the things that was like being said about me behind my back is that, oh, Travis is an atheist now, which is something I've never uttered. I've never said that. I've never uttered those words, but it's just like, as soon as you leave, they just like, people want to fit you in a bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's convenient, right? It's convenient.
Very much
justifies their position in terms of why they're still, you know, hanger-oners.
Justifies their position, as well as like why people shouldn't listen to me. Right. Like, as I already know the sermon illustration.
You're not credible any longer.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, he's not credible.
Yeah, like Travis is an atheist, you know what I mean? So the position that I'm at now, man, I basically feel like there is a higher power. We want to call it God, the universe, whatever. I believe there is a higher power, a higher energy that's out there. I just think that all religions are basically talking to the same power. There's a big leap from like getting me to believe that there's a God to getting me to believe that your version of God is the only one that exists, if that makes sense. So, you know, I think if, you know, there's a Muslim, I have a hard time believing that an all-loving God would send a Muslim to hell because they were born in Qatar and the only version of God they were ever introduced to was Allah, and they were praying to Allah every day. And then they get to the end and God's like, well, you almost had it right. You did live a life of devotion, but you were following the wrong book and you called me the wrong name. So to hell with you forever. No second chances. Like that. It just seems like the opposite of what a loving God would do. So I at this point, I'd feel like, I feel like if there is a real actual place called heaven, that there's going to be a lot more people there than some Christians think there's going to be. Is kind of the way that I look at it.
Do you ever, you know what I was digging into? Because I kind of, I went through an Assembly of God situation, and I got quote unquote, you know, saved, and and I kind of echo your sentiments, right? I mean, it's a big world, you know, and I just I don't know where I was going with that, but I did want to ask you. I do this all the time, Travis. I remember I told you yesterday, in our, you know, how I'm old and stuff's starting to fall off. I think I got Halfheimer's. I don't have Alzheimer's. I just got half of it.
Yeah,
but,
half, yeah.
Geez,
some Heimers, yeah.
How did you get into the, how did you transition into mainstream? Or, you know, quote unquote, outside of that element? You said you left and folks were putting your name, you know, categorizing you in one way or another. How'd you cope with that and compensate and say, hey, there's a big world out here, and
slowly, I guess is kind of the answer. And I didn't talk about it for a long time, because everybody in my life at that time, I knew the reaction that I would get from them, and I also knew that they wouldn't be able to answer any of my questions, because especially for like a lot of my friend groups and friend circles, I felt like I kind of was the guy who knew a lot about those things. Like I was the person watching apologetics videos in my free time. Like I was the person in Bible college. Like I was the person writing sermons. I was the person reading the materials. And
did you actually preach and do all that stuff?
Oh yeah,
is that where you got your 12. Background in front of people? Yeah.
I started preaching when I was 12. So I preached all the time from 12 to 22. You know,
so you have no issue getting in front of an audience. I mean, I've seen you in action, and you look cool as a cucumber. I don't know how you do that, by the way.
No.
Right, you know,
I mean, that's one of the, it's the biggest pro, absolutely, from my background is, were you at Jen and Chris's event? Is that where it was?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Oh,
I wasn't there.
do you know where did I speak that you saw, or what, do you remember
Oh,
what
just
stage it was?
online. Just
Oh,
in
online.
my.
Okay.
I follow you, and
Okay. Got it.
you know,
Got it.
you've got so much content. So it was just a
Got
sliver
it.
somewhere, but I've watched you in action. So
Yeah, I was just curious.
yes,
Yeah,
sir.
that's the biggest pro, absolutely, from how I was raised, is that I was speaking in front of people when I was 12. The first time I ever got up to preach was when I was 12.
That's
So
amazing.
I
That's
spoke
awesome.
from that point on, and that's what I wanted to do with my life. So it's not like everybody that went there had to get up and preach or whatever. This was at a preaching camp in the summer,
Yeah.
so you could sign up for it and go for 5 days in the middle of the summer and take a college level homiletics course. Homiletics is the study of preaching. And so you take
Okay.
basically an interim version, 5 day, all day class every day version of homiletics 1, which is what you take your freshman fall semester of Bible college. And then at the end of the week, you get up and you preach a sermon that you write
Nice.
during that week of learning how to preach. So, yeah, I started when I was 12 and then looked for every opportunity that I could to get on a stage from that point. Like I spoke to our church family, on a Wednesday night. So not the Sunday morning crowd to, 6,000 people, but, a Wednesday night crowd, which was probably still like 1,500 people. I preached to them when I was 15. I preached a
Terrifying.
sermon to them when on a Wednesday night. So, yeah, I was always in front of people, and so that was
Yeah.
absolutely one of the biggest things that, I mean, it's the number one fear. It's people's number one fear that I was able to overcome
Without
at a
question.
very, very young age. Grow up on stage to the degree now it's like I still get nervous for talks and stuff, but by the time I'm up there, I'm pretty solid, pretty sound.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, I am speaking with Travis Chappell, and you can learn more about his story and his offerings by visiting travischappell.com. That's Chappell spelled Chappell, and over on the Instagram platform rather at Travis Chappell, and on his wildly successful podcast, Travis Makes Friends. And if you're a podcaster looking for a guest, or if you're looking to be on a podcast, his amazing service, Guestio.com. Check him out over there is the place in which you do that. That's Guestio. And stop by. I think you'll be glad you did. I get in front of people. I'm prepared. I didn't go through courses or anything or sign up electively to volunteer and say, sign me up. This is my purpose and mission in life. But
Yeah.
like I remember being in freshman year in high school doing just a speech on the V8 combustion engine. And I'm a hot motorhead, and I had it dialed in. I got up there, and when I turned around and saw 100 of my peers in an elevated classroom, I literally forgot everything I said. I walked off stage with my tail between my leg, and I got to tell you, Travis, I'm scarred to this day. So with that being said, you have the onions to do that. I certainly don't.
What I realized really early on, somehow, I don't know if it was just thinking about it or I don't remember exactly what it was. All I remembered was the more that you cared about the embarrassment, the more the audience felt nervous for you. And so if you could figure out a way to get the audience to not feel nervous for you, they feel laid back, and you can kind of feed off of that laid back energy. But if you get up and you're super nervous and shaky, they start being like, oh, because like nobody wants you to fail, right? Unless they're some vindictive reason.
They're a sadist, yeah.
Yeah, right. Like nobody's like rooting for this speaker that gets up to eat shit, It's just that. Yeah. It's just that if they can sense that that's about to happen, or if it's somebody that they know is brand new to doing it, everybody just gets really nervous. Like they share in that nervous energy with you. And so I would intentionally do things that I knew would be like embarrassing for me. But like, if you show that you don't care about that embarrassment, then it makes the audience just relax a little bit. And then you can kind of just be who you're going to be. And then whenever I'd mess up, it just like, I can recover from that, because it's just, it's just taking a small turn, and you can roll with the punches at that point if you get comfortable up there. But Yeah, I realized that really early on. So even like I'll get picked for, I don't know what it is about me, but like for some reason we go to like some of these, shows or whatever. And whenever they're like picking people from the audience to go do stuff on stage, I've been picked like 4 different times to do stupid stuff on stage. One time my wife and I were at a show in Paris, and it was kind of like a, adults only kind of nighttime type show. And they picked me from the audience when the most of the cast was backstage doing something. They picked me from the audience to basically like copy this guy that was on stage who was doing these like super weird, embarrassing dance moves. And it's like the only decision at that time is commitment to the bit. Because if you don't commit to it, again, everybody's like, oh, I feel bad for this guy. But if you just like go in and commit hard, it's like, I'm going to look like an idiot up here because I don't know how to dance at all. But if you commit hard to it, it just makes it light and funny and everybody has a good time. You know what I mean? So you just got to commit to the bit, whatever it's going to be, and be okay with being embarrassed, because, the only person that decides you're embarrassed is you.
You have dance moves like, yeah, exactly. You've got dance moves like Elaine from Seinfeld, right?
Oh yeah, I totally. She might be better than I am. We literally,
Gotcha.
We would get demerits for dancing growing up. So you'd get 15 demerits if you're caught dancing, and 25 demerits is a suspension from school. So it was literally like not allowed. We were not allowed to dance. So combine that with my already obvious genetic disposition. I've never quite learned how to dance at all. You. So.
How'd you make your way? Speaking of nerves and, just the fear of rejection and overcoming that, door-to-door sales was your thing, man. I mean, yeah, that's gotta be, you hear about that from back in the day, the vacuum cleaner salesman and all that, knocking on the doors. And I remember as a youngster, I've got some years on you, but I mean, how did you get into that? I mean, was that something that you were,
it was kind of
an income or?
It was kind of an only option scenario where I was in college and I had a little landscaping business, but I wasn't doing any of the work. Frankly, I just got lazy. I just got tired of doing landscaping because I'd done it all throughout high school and growing up and everything. And so in college, I was lucky enough that my parents were paying for my school. Very lucky, because it was an unaccredited college. So you couldn't get any financial aid or scholarships or anything like that. Like everybody just had to learn how to pay for it. And some people had to go work full time in addition to going to school full time just to pay their college bill. Because like debt wasn't even an option. Like you couldn't get a student loan for it. You know what I mean? Because it's unaccredited college. So I was lucky enough that my parents pay that bill. And since the college happened to be in my hometown, I lived at home. So I didn't have the additional expenses of like dorm rooms and all that other stuff. So I was just, doing some landscaping on the side. My parents wanted me to focus on schooling full time. So I was that's why I graduated a semester early, because I was taking like 21 credits a semester and then playing basketball. So I was still had a very busy schedule. But then a buddy of mine, I remember, came and showed me his paycheck working for this door-to-door company that started. And he'd only worked like 20. What caught my attention was that I remembered the summer before, we were all kind of mad at him because he was saving for college and he was working 2 full-time jobs. So he was working 80 hours a week as like a 16-year-old for the entire summer to save up money to be able to afford school. And we were all like, we weren't actually upset, but we're all just like, he can't hang out ever because he's always working, Sure. And I remember he was like, I made more on this paycheck working 20 hours a week than I did working 80 hours a week this past summer. And I was like, oh, interesting. What's that about? And it was a door-to-door solar gig that was starting up there. And the nice thing about it is that it had the minimum wage hourly built into it. So it was $10 an hour.
So
plus,
it wasn't a draw situation.
Plus commissions. And they were just hiring a bunch of people at that time. So I got the job and just for whatever reason, immediately excelled. I was promoted the first week and then promoted again the third week, and then had became a team leader within 6 weeks or 2 months. And within 4 or 5 months, I was running a team of like 20 door-to-door guys when I was 20 years old. In college, and I was making like $1,500 a week doing that. And then I really enjoyed doing it. I've always had a, entrepreneurial itch and a business mindset.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that. And that was kind of one of the things that eventually led me out of the ministry, was that I knew I wanted to continue doing that job, but I knew that I was like quote unquote called to ministry. So I felt this like internal wrestling
conflict.
where like I felt like it was, Satan tempting me away from the ministry with money, which is exactly what the people told me that I was thinking about. They were like, told me the same exact thing. And I remember just like looking at we did interviews for, associate pastor positions across the country, whatever, our senior year, me and my wife together, because we were engaged at the time. And I remember like looking at them, and I had a job offer for $18,000 a year, $18,000 a year. And my wife was going to make, $18,000, and then they were going to pay her $6,000. So combined $24,000 a year for like full-time work, like 60 hours a week, full-time work. Cause they were going to have me be the administrator of the school and the, associate pastor of the church. And my wife was going to be the main secretary. So it was nothing. And I was making like $75K at that time, working 25 hours a week, maybe, while I was going to school still and playing basketball. I was like, this does not seem like a good idea here. You know what I mean? And to be fair, there were some other ministry offers that were paying better than that, but again, not much better. And, so I was like, and it wasn't really even the money to me. It was like, I really enjoy doing this work. Like I enjoy like the leadership development piece. I enjoy like improving and getting better at this thing and seeing the results. Like I'm really having fun doing this. And I was interning at a church on the weekends and not enjoying doing that. And so it was this weird position that I was like, I'm supposed to be quitting this job in like 3 months and taking a position in ministry, doing the thing I don't really want to be doing and quitting the thing that I really want to be doing. And so that ended up being what I did when I decided I wasn't going to be in ministry. It's like, what do you do when you have an unaccredited Bible degree and you realize you don't want to be in ministry? It's like I'm not going back to school. First of all, none of them would take my transcripts. I'd have to get another 4-year degree after I just completed a 4-year degree because none of my credits would transfer to an actual school. And then I wasn't even sure they would take my credits from high school because the high school that I went to was the Baptist high school. So school wasn't really an option. And then, what am I going to do? Go work like a $30,000 a year job for somebody I hate, doing stupid work at a desk somewhere? Like that sounds miserable. So door-to-door sales seemed like the best path because 100% commission door-to-door, you make your own schedule, you kill what you eat, and it's a survival of the fittest thing. And I knew I was pretty good at it, and I was making $75K already. So I just did that. And so like my first full-time year was right out of college doing door-to-door, and I made $100,000 that year knocking on doors, selling alarm systems in the heat of Central California.
Outstanding. That's compelling, man. So you're about 24 years old, right? And you get into the podcasting world. You really didn't, I'm just curious, you didn't really have the background or the experience. And, I just was curious. I think you said at one point when you broke in, Travis, you worked 3 years behind the mic on a USB mic.
Yeah.
And you didn't invest into the equipment per se. You invested in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And to piggyback on that, you got into reading some stuff, and we'll dovetail hopefully into that Anthony DeMello awareness and some of those guys. And I'd like to know what you read, but what would you give advice in terms of, I'm Bobby Stein, I want to jump into the world of podcasting, but I feel as though I need, all the gadgets and gizmos.
Yeah. The big delta is you need to improve you first. And it's not the advice people want to hear because most people, especially people who feel a desire to podcast, they're like, I know how to talk. You know what I mean? Like they don't think that there's anything that goes into it. And they invest in the wrong things. They think I need the equipment. I need the studio. I need the setup. I need the social media manager. I need all these other things. And it's like, if your content sucks, none of the other things matter. You know what I'm saying? Like a perfect example is the Kelsey brothers. They have like the top sports podcasts in all of iTunes right now.
Jason and Travis.
They record on Zoom or Riverside. Like, I don't know if they use Riverside or Zoom or whatever they use, but they're doing virtual, like they don't have a big, beautiful, expensive set. Like they have microphones plugged in their computers and they record on Zoom, and they had LeBron zoom in to like, but the bottom line is like, their content is fantastic. And obviously the big boost came from the fact that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are dating. But
the Super Bowl with Jason.
but that's part of what makes the content fantastic is people care about what those guys say. So they don't have an amazing setup. It's just that people care about the content. So if you're, like I said, if your content sucks, doesn't matter how much you magnify it. It doesn't matter how pretty you look on your set. It doesn't matter if you spend 10 grand or 2 grand or 100 grand building a studio. Nobody's going to listen to it if it sucks. So you have to fix that part first. And most people don't, first of all, realize how much they suck, but also they don't realize how long it's going to take to get better. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're not good at something, you don't know what it means to be good at that thing. It's like anytime I watch a movie that has basketball in it, I can tell if the actor is actually good at basketball. Like I can tell because of the way they dribble the ball, because the way they shoot the ball. Like I know because I played a ton of basketball.
And absolutely, you know all the nuances. It's like Rocky Balboa, right, in a boxing thing. What did you think about White Men Can't Jump? Did those guys know what they were doing?
You know, I actually didn't see that movie, so I don't know.
Oh my gosh! Do yourself a favor. I know you're a big movie buff. Oh, that's a terrific one.
I'll definitely. I've heard it's always great. I just never taken the time to watch it. But yeah, I don't know. But like my point is like if I go watch like a soccer movie or I watch a sport that I don't know much about, I can't really tell. You know, you can tell if it's obvious, of course, but like sometimes I can't really tell. Like I don't know if that guy has played or a girl has played soccer before. But if you take somebody who knows the game of soccer, they'll be like, oh yeah, they're clearly just playing for the movie. Yeah, right. And that's how it is with any skill. It's like the better you get, the more nuanced you realize professionalism becomes. And it's the same thing when you're starting off with a podcast. Is like you might think your stuff is really good at the beginning, but you have the lens of being a brand new podcaster, and you won't know the difference between good and bad when you're starting off that early. So unless you have direct experience doing it, like if you've been in radio for 20 years, or you have a YouTube channel that you put out 500 episodes on, or you know you've been speaking on stage for 20 years. Like if you have a directly related talent, that's a little bit different, or a skill that's different. But starting from scratch, man, people. They want to have the excuse to go buy all the stuff that they want to geek out on and buy. And it's like, well, that stuff's not going to be the thing to return the money. The goal is getting it to produce income so that you can go buy things and so that you can pay yourself to do this, not just to have the stuff. You know what I mean? So if you're investing in the wrong things, you can blow your entire budget on stuff that doesn't matter when you could have invested in a coach, invested in an event with a bunch of people at it that are already successful at it, so you can go learn from them. You know, you have to improve yourself,
which is what you did, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, to the nth degree, man. I've almost probably too much. I put like 40 grand. I had a 0% credit card. I put $42,000 on for events, masterminds, flights, hotels, like all that stuff. Because I was just like, I am just desperate to learn and meet people who've already done well so that I can rub shoulders with them. And then it's not just learning from them, it's collaborating with them. You know, it's hanging out with them at the conference, then they invite you on their show, and then you get listeners from that. Like it's being in and around the space where people are doing this full time and learning to see like what it takes to be able to do it. How can I rub shoulders with these people? If we build a good enough relationship, they might invite me on their show. I might meet an advertiser there that's interested in sponsoring a show, even if it has really, really low download numbers. You know, like you just gotta go be where the things are happening and whatever it is you're trying to be successful in. But podcasting is no exception.
Yeah, and that's where that's what you did. You didn't put the cart before the horse, or you invested in yourself. You said you got into reading, into self-development too, because that plays into the becoming a better you, so that your content will reflect that when you're in front of the mic.
Absolutely. Yeah. I did that before I started the podcast, because that was like in my early 20s. After I had that 6-figure year in door to door, I was like, I don't want to be a door to door guy forever. I don't really like doing it. It's just the fact that I can pick my own schedule and it makes good money. But I don't want to be doing this when I'm 33 or 43 or 53. And I knew about guys that were doing it, not to vilify it. There's a lot of people I know that have made great money doing it for their whole career. I just didn't want to do it. So then at that point I had a even more difficult time, because I felt like I was doing the work of a 15-year-old, because I knew that I didn't want to do, I was just like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Like, what should I be? What should I be when I grow up? And it's like, bummer for me was that I had a mortgage payment to make and a wife at home. Like I was just a little bit too old to be trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. But I was in a position where it was like, I know I don't want to do door to door, which is the thing that I know I'm good at. And I know I don't want to be in ministry, which is the only thing I'm qualified to do with my background. So what else can I do? And so that was when I was like really started picking up more books and watching more YouTube videos and listening to audiobooks for the first time and really getting into developing myself. So at the time, it was like Tim Ferriss was one of the first podcasts to listen to because I got the 4 Hour Work Week. And then Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker, Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People, like some of like the kind of core doctrine of self-help, if you will. I kind of rolled through some of those and then listened to some podcasts and the podcast would recommend other books. And so I'd go pick those books up and mostly a lot of audio I would listen to while I was just trying to do stuff and figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And then coincidentally, that's how I decided I wanted to start the podcast, was that I started being an avid consumer of them and was like, this seems cool. Let's see if that's something. But then after I started the podcast, it's like, it's obvious that you got to continue consuming content or else what are you going to keep talking about? And especially at that time, I was a 24-year-old kid with a Bible college degree. Like I wasn't starting a show about Bible and I wasn't starting a show about door-to-door sales. So like, I can't talk about the things that I actually know how to do because I don't want to keep talking about those things. So I just basically learned how to interview people who knew about the things that I wanted to talk about. And then I would read books and distribute the information. That I would learn the books because that was the only way I knew how to compile information that was interesting enough to actually consume. So
awesome.
Yeah, that was, and then it just started.
Well, speaking of like collaborating and rubbing elbows, you've interviewed some really big names. You had written down on goals. I'm sure you're big on goals, but the top 5 folks that you wanted to interview. And one of the ones was Shaq. And of course, you've interviewed folks like, Ed Milet and Grant Cardone. One of my favorites, I got to tell you. Well, there's so many. Joey Gatto just recently from Impractical Jokers.
He's such a cool guy.
Oh my God, he had a wonderful, you're a fantastic interview, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
For real. No, it's for real. But Steve Sims, I ran right out. This was not long ago and I got the Audible, what was it? Stupid.
Go for Stupid. Yeah.
Go for Stupid. And the reason I got it was because of your show. His accent and his charisma and his energy was just so contagious. And he narrates his own book. And oh my gosh, I'll walk 4 miles around the perimeter of my neighborhood and I come back and I'm like, he's just fantastic. It's all good, man. So
Steve's great.
Yeah,
man.
that's so cool that you're into it. Yeah. Do you have any so when you're talking to that guy, he just had a health scare too. I mean,
he's in the middle of it right now. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. He's in the middle, smack dab in the middle of it right now.
Yeah. He seems like the genuine article for sure. So tell me a little bit more. You got Joey Gatto, Gatto. Yep. Gatto. That was it. You had something like what was it? Knocking on 10 million views, knocking on the door for 10 million views, and it almost got pulled down. What was the story behind that?
Yeah, well, it was just the TikTok ban. It was like that was my most viewed video ever. It was a clip of my conversation with Joe Gatto, and that clip was sitting at like, obviously TikTok ended up coming back, so it didn't end up going away, but it's sitting at like 9.83 million views or something like that. And I was waiting to like post something about like, oh, we hit 10 million views. But then when I thought TikTok was going away, I was like, all right, well, fell just short of 10 million views. So when it hits 10 million, I'll post about it again. But yeah, that was like my most viewed video ever, was that clip from Joe Gatto's interview.
And I understand you got one coming up on the horizon, right? With Murr, I think it is,
Yep.
One of the other fellows.
Yep,
Murr. I'm so excited to look out for that.
Oh, it's gonna. I really had a great time doing that episode. Yeah, I did that in New York last week. So once we relaunch Travis Makes Friends on the new feed, we'll be dropping the episodes that I'm currently recording for that show.
Wow, all good stuff, man. Well, listen, you've been so gracious with your time today, man, and just dropping bombs and giving us a little bit about what motivates your mindset. And I so appreciate that, Travis. Thanks.
Of course, dude. Thank you for coming prepared and asking some good questions. Was happy to spend the time with you. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, the last thing I'll leave you with is you prepare these questions. I mean, folks that are want notes upon notes, and you only get to scratch the surface because you get such a good guest like Travis, and he just goes on, right down the lane with the topic, and it's so cool. But there you have it, folks. Travis, you have an amazing mindset, and we appreciate everybody for watching and listening. And I encourage you to visit Travis over at travischappell.com. Check out his phenomenal podcast. We didn't even get into Guestio. Folks, get over to Guestio. If you're a podcast, can you want to give it a quick shout out to your service? Because it's amazing.
Yeah, make it as simple as possible. If
Please.
You're a podcaster looking for guests, you can find them in that marketplace. And if you are a guest looking to get booked on podcasts, you can find those in that marketplace as well. And that's at guestio.com.
Well, that's it, man. So there you go, everyone. So for Travis Chappell, I'm your host, Bobby Stein, saying thanks for your eyeballs, thanks for your ear holes, and until next time, take good care. Travis, you're a rock star. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bobby. You're awesome.